Call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the cramped conditions, but we were unaware that the fire department has state mandated drivers training tonight. They have to log on with the state of Michigan. So I don't think I could kick them out when the state head guy from the fire department, fire marshal, do drivers training. So thank you for bearing with us here. Meeting is called to order. First thing I'm going to do, I am going to read the five petitions against us, and we'll go from there. I'll read mine first. This petition is being sponsored by, it was submitted by Anita Cassiga. In 2022, St. Joseph County Board of Commissioners notified Supervisor Donald Gloy of the application requirements to receive special funds through the county. Supervisor Gloy did not submit an application, and White Pigeon was excluded from receiving any of these funds. The second petition is also sponsored by Anita Cassidy. This is against Trudy Gloy, Treasurer. Ethics. On July 26, 2022, Trudy Gloy purchased a vacant residential lot in White Pigeon Township. At the August 3, 2022 meeting, Treasurer Gloy voted to approve Township Ordinance number 97. This ordinance allowed for construction of a residential storage building previously prohibited. Following ordinance number 97 approval, a building permit was issued and construction of a residential building, and the rest of it's cut off. So the third petition, fourth petition, and fifth petition are all the same language. Two of them were submitted by Anita Cassidy against Jean Twp, trustee, Vince Schroen, trustee. Gail Van Single sponsored the third one against Lacey Pletcher. All three are the exact same verbiage. At the June 6, 2023 meeting, White Pigeon Township budget hearing, Clerk Pletcher voted to approve the fiscal year 23-24 budget. The budget was not made available for public inspection prior to the hearing per Michigan compiled law, Michigan case law 141.412. Those are the petitions that are being circulated against the 5 township board members. We are going to address the allegations in these petitions. And at this point, I am going to have our attorney, Lance Thornton, address in order the allegations against us.
Okay. The first one I'll address is the petition regarding Don Gloy not applying for what we call ARPA funds through the county process. White Pigeon Township did apply for and received ARPA funds through the federal process. So the township did applied for and received funds through the federal process on its own. 6 out of 16 townships, according to the minutes of the St. Joseph County Commission, did not receive ARPA funds through the county process. 4 out of the 6 villages within St. Joseph County did not apply for and receive funds through the county process. White Pigeon Township's reasons for not applying for ARPA funds through the county process were reporting requirements set up by the county weren't established at the time for the applications and were not clear. Township received its own ARPA funds, as I previously stated, and the township chose not to compete since it had received its own funds with other good and needed organizations seeking those funds through the county commission. So that's the response to the ARPA funds in the county process. Regarding adoption of ordinance number 97, this is in regards to the petition regarding Trudy Goy. Ordinance 97 amended the township zoning regulations to allow residential storage buildings to be built on parcels within the agricultural, rural residential, and waterfront residential districts under limited circumstances as a permitted use. Ordinance 97 was considered and adopted after many requests and inquiries. We determined about an average of 2 to 3 per month during the last 2-3 years from township residents for this change in order to address an issue of lack of storage, especially around the lakes. In response to the numerous requests and inquiries township officials were receiving to allow residential storage buildings, discussions to amend the zoning regulations began in 2021. The township's 5-member planning commission took up the issue on January 3rd, 2022, and scheduled a public hearing on the issue for April 4th, 2022. As initially proposed, Ordinance 97 would have allowed residential storage buildings as a special land use, which means you'd had to obtain a special land use permit in order to have one or build one. At the conclusion of the Township Planning Commission's public hearing on proposed ordinance number 97 on April 4th, 2022, the 5 members of the Planning Commission decided that it would be in the best interest of the township residents to allow these limited residential storage buildings as a permitted use as opposed to a special land use. And the Planning Commission directed me as township attorney to amend the proposed ordinance accordingly, which was done. I attended that public hearing, and I do not recall there being any public comment against the proposal. On July 11th, 2022, the Township Planning Commission voted unanimously to send proposed ordinance 97 to the County Planning Commission for review and comment pursuant to Michigan law. And the Township Planning Commission also recommended that after the comments were received by the County Planning Commission, that the Township Board adopt and implement Ordinance 97. The County Planning Commission had its planning consultant, South Central Michigan Planning Council, out of Kalamazoo, review proposed Ordinance 97. South Central Michigan Planning Council, in a letter dated July 13, 2023, stated, "We concur with these proposed amendments as these amendments are consistent with best practices." On August 3rd, 2022, the Township Board, following the unanimous recommendation of the Township Planning Commission and the comments of the County Planning Commission, voted unanimously to adopt Ordinance 97. So that's the township response to the allegations against Trudy Goy. Next, regarding whether the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget was made available to the public for review. Budget documents were available for review in the township offices beginning on May 18, 2023. Pursuant to Michigan law, the township caused a notice of public hearing on the proposed budget to be published in the Sturgis Journal on May 24, 2023. On June 1st, 2023, Anita Cassada visited the township offices and requested to see the proposed budget along with a special assessment roll. She was handed both documents and reviewed them. She did not request a copy of the budget at that time. On June 6, 2023, the Township Board held its public hearing on the proposed budget. During the public hearing, Paige Willis asked to see a copy of the proposed budget, and a copy of the budget was handed to her during the public hearing. That is the township's response to the 3 petitions against Lacey Pletcher, Vince Schroen, and Gene Teft.
Thank you, Lance. And now that we've addressed these allegations, I'm going to open the public comment. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. I ask everybody to please be civil in all your public comments, whether for or against. I will now open the public comment. Whoever would like to speak. Karen, is that you? Karen? You just stand up, you got a prepared statement, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, definition of elected official is a noun, an official who has been chosen by election. Hello, my name is Karen Groves, and I am a resident of White Pigeon. I am here today to express my concern about these false accusations that some members of the White Pigeon Township Citizens for Transparency group have put upon the hardworking, voter-elected township officials. Apparently, there are some members of this group that feel that their lives are miserable and therefore need to make the lives of our elected township official miserable too. They complain all the time about funds for this and funds for that, but they have no complaints about the funds needed for this absurd recall. If they feel that our elected officials are not doing a good job, why don't they run for office? Maybe because they know they would never win, or maybe they just like to create drama, stress, and misery in other people's lives. Personally, I think it's the latter. These people who are being recalled were elected to their position and do not need you to scrutinize every decision that they make. Get a life. Would you like it if we sat outside of your residence and watched every little thing that you do? And if we don't like it, file petitions against you? Call the police for every little thing you do? Oh, that blade of grass is a centimeter too tall. I'm gonna file a petition. Your garbage can's too close to the road. I'm gonna file a petition. I don't like the color of your house, so I'm gonna file a petition. Seems a bit much, doesn't it? It is obvious that you have it out for everyone in the township and the people whom you just don't like. Welcome to the real world, where people have to learn to get along and get the job done, whether you like them or not. Life's not fair, and just because you want something and are told no, then someone else goes about the proper channels and gets a yes, you get your feelings hurt. These are hard-working, trusting individuals who do the absolute best for our township. Thank you for wasting everyone's time and energy when it could be spent doing so much more and so much better things.
Thank you. Bev?
I'm Bev Spires, and I'm going to address both groups here tonight, trying to stay neutral. First of all, the accusations against Don. Number one, Don has held this job for a long time. Many of you wonder why. It's because nobody will run against him. So, as a citizen of White Pigeon Township, if we don't like the way things are being run, somebody needs to step up and run. Okay? I'm old, I'm only here half the year, so it's not gonna be me. But people in this village need to start coming to meetings, asking questions, and then running for offices, both on the township and the village. Don, regarding the ARPA funds, you stated in a meeting that you did not apply for them because it was too much paperwork and there were too many questionable wording in it as to how it would be spent. I don't recall you ever telling us that you got federal funds. So, that's all I'm gonna say on that one. Trudy, in my opinion, both you and Don should have abstained from the vote on that ordinance because you knew you were in the process of purchasing land to build an outside building. That would have ended this whole discussion. The other three, I have to beg to differ that that budget was handed to Anita at the mirror page at the meeting. I was at that meeting.
And
I heard them ask for it, and it was not given it to them during that meeting. I think it was given to them after the meeting, after the vote. I know for a fact, because I haven't dealt with it here, but I've dealt with it on the village. Lacey knows. It's very difficult sometimes to get the budget in a timely manner. I was told several times, we aren't done with it yet, it's not been audited yet, blah, blah, blah. I eventually got them from the village, okay? And then I did FOIAs asking questions about them, and they were all answered for me very honestly, not to my liking on a lot of them. I didn't like the answers I got, but they were answered. I know that Paige's FOIAs, there was an awful lot of, I don't know, misinformation or lack of information, that we don't have a list of the duties of the clerk. Then how do we have an employee that's a clerk? How do we know what she's supposed to do? So that's all I'm gonna say. Again, to the general public, start paying attention. Run for office. And you have to do it ahead of time. You've gotta go over to Centerville and get the forms. You gotta go get signatures saying people want you to be an officer. But if you don't, then we have no right to criticize these people for the way they're doing it.
Thank you. Someone else? Paige?
At the June sixth meeting, 8 minutes and 55 seconds in, because I record every meeting. Jean admitted for you to taking the budget home. So that right there is why that recall position was put in, because you admitted also at that meeting that you took it home. And per that, there is a violation of office. In the 4th Federal Law, 18 USC 1918, Section 1, it's automatic removal of office or confinement or a fine. And then the salary resolution was 4195 subsection 3, which is 6422 of 1987. The township board to adopt a separate resolution for each official, and that was not done. So how can you guys follow some laws but break other ones and not expect people to get mad? And that's where the issue comes, because I came in and asked questions, then I come in and see that we can't even ask questions. We have the FOIA paperwork, which is against FOIA laws as well. So my issue is you guys wanna follow laws, and then you don't wanna follow laws and you break them at the same time, which is why I think people are getting as mad as they are. And that's why I record, so people can hear it all firsthand rather than hearsay, basically. And I don't think it's right that you guys, personally, I think 17 years is too long on the board. I think there should be a cap on that. That's mine, and I know yours 34 years, but like one of them said, if nobody runs against you, it's all of our fault as well. And I just think there needs to be more transparency rather than being fought with retaliation and not getting questions answered. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Vicky?
Yeah, speaking of transparency, you guys have this little group that you won't let anybody join.
Oh, I'm not part of that, I just comment on it.
It's not very transparent.
You should address the.
Not very
Sure.
transparent, because you can't, they want everybody to know what's going on, but you're not allowed to join your group if you're a fan or, a friend of one of you guys, or a family member, or you just rejected. And so I have a problem with that. If they want people to know what's going on, then it shouldn't be so it shouldn't be transparent that you can't, join their little group. That is all.
Thank you.
Don,
Rick?
I'd just like to know why these people get to do this And who's paying for this? To have all you guys come to all this stuff. I mean, are you paying for it? No.
There's no charges been,
Oh, no charges to
No.
you.
no
But it's
charges to
charging to
anybody.
all of us
It's the
taxpayers.
taxpayers.
No.
Yes,
We-
it
we
Yes,
is.
do-
it is.
We gotta address.
Everybody,
address the chair.
address me,
Okay,
and everybody, Rick has the floor, let Rick speak.
well, I just mean, you know, I'm here tonight because I'm on a couple of these boards, and I don't make that much to do this. It's more or less just out of the kindness of my heart to do it for everybody. And then you guys are here pissing and moaning about what Don's doing. And I just don't get it when you, I know it costs a lot of money to have all these people here. It's not cheap to have to go through all this. And I guess that's all I got to say. It's costing money. Money that could have been spent doing something else to the county, or the city, or the township, whatever. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Everybody, no clapping. Let's please keep it, John,
My name's John Teff. First, I'm gonna talk a little bit about Don and Trudy in the barn. So you all know Don was negotiating with somebody else to try to get some land that was very close to his house, and none of this would have took place as far as him buying land. You know, there's no reason to complain about it. So, having a barn, there's lots of people go around, drive around the neighborhood, drive around the lakes and take a look at all of the sheds and barns that have been built. Because people needed them and wanted them. So, that's a poor reason to recall somebody. The other thing is we want transparency, but the thing is, Anita has a barn, I'll call it a storage shed, sitting on her property, illegally. She never got zoning. That's a requirement anytime you do anything to property. And this know-it-all, and she thinks she knows it all. Her and her cronies think they know it all.
awkward, isn't it, Bev?
But yeah, she thinks it's all right to put a barn or shed on her property. And where she put it is something illegal and would not been able to be where it's at. So she violated twice. So, you know, too bad the enforcement officer don't go out there and give her a nice fine. That's what they would do to other people. And up to including remove the shed. But she thinks she knows it all. And wants to recall these people for that. You know, I think that's being pretty two-faced. It's okay for her to do it and break the rules, but it's not for somebody else. So, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Brian Jessler. I've known a few of these people up here for a long time. Trudy, since just a little guy, she's always been involved in our community, our school system, ever since I was little. As far as Mr. Gloy, played baseball with his son. I remember about 10 years ago, we had an issue with our Parks and Rec. And we had a big battle between parents and the board and money and the whole 9 yards. So Don and the board took that on to mediate and help us get it fixed and solved and figure out where our money was going. Lacey and her husband, I mean, they do a ton for our community. As far as the school system and the kids especially, they do a ton. With that all being said, you know, the fighting back and forth, the bickering back and forth, we're all human, we make mistakes. I do believe that maybe some of us need to get more involved, because until last week, I mean, we had no idea what was going on ourselves. That's why we're here, to kind of get a feel for what it is, what's going on. I have a hard time believing that Don and Trudy and any of these other board members would purposely go out of the way to shyster any of you as much as they've been involved in our community and the time that they donated and spent, you know, doing what they do for our communities when the rest of us aren't willing to stand up and do it ourselves. So maybe let's not point so many fingers, and maybe let's come together and see if we can come up with some solutions and all the ridiculous BS that we're doing right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Is this when I can say something?
Go ahead.
I'm Lynn Rogelstad, I've got a cottage on Klinger, part-time resident. The family here over 55 years on Klinger Lake, and, I had a new home being built contiguous with mine, and, was concerned, the board allowed a 4-foot variance, which people were like, how in the heck was that allowed? At least I ever heard it was 5 anyway, but somehow the board decided to allow a 6-foot variance, allowing just 4 feet between the property line and their home. And, I was concerned, having seen the drawings of the home, that the awning on the home was gonna breach that already that far from the property line, the house. And, so I wrote a letter to the board and didn't hear anything in return. Second letter to the board, didn't hear anything in return. Third letter to the board, didn't hear anything in return. Fourth letter to the board, I sent it certified mail. And I said, okay, just so that we're all clear, this was the gist of the letter, just so that we're all clear, your oversight is such that I do not need to worry about this breaching the already unbelievably close to the line, the house breaching it. So I called Jean, and Jean said, we are sending out the attorney, we are sending out Don Cloyd, and I don't know, there was a third person too, and they are gonna look at it, and we will hear no more about this from you. Sweetie pie, honey bunch, yes, happy days. I was getting all these smiley faces and really nice, kind words until push came to shove, and then I was threatened. So, I think these people have been in office too long, and I think it's their little fiefdom. And I think that it's time for a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have more of a question.
We
And
aren't
a
taking
statement?
questions, we're only taking comments.
Okay, well, I guess my concern is if all of a sudden you take all these 5 board members away, of which there is 5, who the hell is gonna run the township? I mean, you can recall all these people and they're out of jobs, but when I see a voting thing, on a lot of things, I don't see anybody opposing the people that are on there. For years, Mary Airgood was a treasurer and nobody ever ran against her until she finally retired. And we had to get somebody to run it. If you've got a complaint, then step up and run and change it. Otherwise, shut up.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dan?
Dan Chkowski, I have a little knowledge of a couple of things. Number one, concerning the ARPA monies. I was a county commissioner at the time representing this area. And everybody got their money from the Fed. And the Fed at the time, there were all kinds of speculation and no answers. And we actually hired somebody to help the county get through it. Many counties did not offer a share of their money to the local communities. I was one of them that was for doing that, and I mentioned it to Don early on, and it was exactly that. Don had a great deal of concerns of what kind of restrictions the feds were gonna put on and how it was gonna be monitored and everything like that. And that was a big concern of his right from start. The monies eventually were given out to communities that did apply for them. There was no mandatory effort. This place got the money that they were gonna get. This would have been some additional if they chose to do it. There were restrictions, there was monitoring put on it, but it was not a mandatory thing to do it. And those, I remember specifically, were Don's concerns at the time. As opposed to the thing against Trudy, if you go back and look in the village ordinances and changes, you guys were about 30 years behind us. We took and we changed the law in the village that said you could not have a building on an empty residential lot. And we had back that long ago, people asking, well, wait a minute, you know, there are more and more people getting more and more cars, boats, you know, things like that. They needed storage. And here, so you had a vacant lot sitting there. It behooved the community to allow them to put something on there. It could be taxed for it, and it offered the property owner then to have extra storage space. Around the lakes, that would be even more critical. So I know a little bit about that. And I'll tell you, the only thing I have a problem with recalls, they aren't good. And I'll tell you why. Number one, they don't work. You know, you have general elections that are made to elect people. You keep them in office, and then if you don't like the job they're doing, you run somebody else, get educated people that want to run, take the position, and then they do that. Recalls are usually based on because somebody didn't get their way on a vote, or they don't like the personality of somebody. The restrictions for coming up with a reason are very limited. In this case, as I understand, it's gonna take 400 signatures to even get it on the ballot. Good luck with that one. The village tried it. They had to get substantially less. They couldn't even come up with that. And then in a general election or a recall election, odds are totally against it. And I'd be like Bev, I'd try to make the two ends come together here. If you don't believe in what's going on here and you think the people ought to be changed, then get some qualified people that are gonna run, put the effort towards doing that, getting them ready. And by the way, have this person, if they say, well, we can do a better job, good. How are you gonna do a better job? And what did Mr. Gloy do wrong? And what did Vince do wrong? How are you gonna correct that? Just don't say I can do a better job. Get some meat behind it of how you're gonna do it. Oh, and by the way, somebody brought up here the cost. Lance, you getting paid to be here?
Yes.
That's coming out of taxpayers' money. You do an election, that's coming out of taxpayers' money. So for a few people,
Mr.
want to
Chairman, Mr.
3
Chakowski
minutes,
has hit
man.
his 3 minute limit.
3 minutes.
Time's up, Dan.
Thank you. I can't get up and say hi in 2 minutes.
I was being polite, Mr. Tchaikovsky.
I'm sorry, I met my limit.
Is there any other public comment?
Hey, Don, can I give my 3 minutes to Dan to let
I can keep rolling.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Anita, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Anita Cassida, I'm part of the group that's behind the recall. I wanted to thank Bev Spires for speaking up. She said what I couldn't have said any better. There's a big group here tonight, but I've been coming to the board meetings for over a year, and not that many people show up. Maybe this is what it took to shake it up, but when you're not here, and they don't put it in their minutes, what actually happened, because it's just public comment open, public comment closed. That's not telling what happened in a public meeting. So, you know, if you would come to these meetings, you would see the attacks that have been made on me personally. Because, no, this was back in December, out of the blue, because I had my feelings hurt.
Anita has the floor. Please be quiet. Anita has the floor.
And Mr. Gloy read a prepared statement that I believe the attorney wrote for him, and in a public meeting, out of the blue, criticized me. So it's things like that, and the way they vote, the way they won't share, the way they're not transparent. We just believe that things are being hidden. Otherwise,
Hey, hey, Jeremy. I'll ask you to
Otherwise,
leave if you do
why-
that again.
won't you share answers with us, put it in the minutes so that people know what's going on? That's all we asked for, was transparency. And we didn't get it, and I think the whole community needs to know. You guys ran unopposed year after year after year. You weren't really re-elected, it was by default. Maybe it is time for new people to be in, but everyone here needs to know they need to show up and stand up and be counted. Because this is what happens when you let your community go unchecked. And as far as some of the allegations that Mr. Thornton has made against me in the newspaper, he got bad information from Clerk Pletcher, Trustee Teft, and Don Gloy, stating that certain things happened, that I had seen a budget that Lacey Pletcher wasn't even involved in the conversation, and I hadn't seen the budget. I record everything when I come into this building, and I recorded Jean stating, oh, this is not that, this is, what I was seeing was the assessment roll. There was no budget available when I came in here on May the 25th. And Mr. Thornton writes in the paper, in fact, at the clarity hearing, that I came into the office on June the 1st. They're
Thank
trying
you,
to
Anita.
remake.
3 minutes are up. Thank you. Anyone else have public comment? Going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. Okay. Board, if they choose, if they'd like to make a statement, I'll start with you, Vince.
Oh, you might not want to. Do I have more than 3 minutes?
No, we have as long as
Okay.
we like.
I will agree with Bev. We are elected officials by the general public. Most of the time, people don't run because they don't wanna do the homework, they don't wanna do the education. None of us on this board, the village, or any other board affiliated with the village or township is doing it for fame or notoriety, and we're definitely not doing it for fortune. We're doing it because we love our community, okay? We're trying to protect it for you, for us, for our families, for our grandchildren. The problem is, and you're all kinda right, when the meetings are empty, we take it as though the general public is pretty happy with what's going on. We're not doing anything wrong, we're just business as normal. I wanna back up if I can, give just a little bit of history. I came here from the big city out on the East Coast to a small town, and I fell in love with the small town community. So I decided I need to do my part if I wanna live here, so I joined the fire department. Backing up quite a few years, most of you are of age that you know what the Keystone Cops are from the silent movies. White Pigeon at the time were known as Keystone Firemen, okay? In the past 20 years, our fire department is probably one of the best, if not the best, in St. Joe County. When something goes on in a meeting or another department asks, what do? They call. What's White Pigeon doing? That tells me a lot. The sewer board, we have an awesome sewer for our community. In fact, it is so good and so progressive for the future. We have other communities looking at, hey, can we join? You know, what's that tell you? The village has got so many projects going on now that you can't wrap your head around them. The entire embodiment of White Pigeon is progressive for the future, for our protection, your protection, future generations. That's what this is all about. And I agree with Bev 100%. Usually, okay, let me back up one more time. I was president of the Community Association, which puts on White Pigeon Days for about 10 years. And folks, I got burned out. So for the past 2 years before I retired from it, we were asking for volunteers. We had nada, not one. So for 2 years, we didn't have a festival. Okay, and it's the same with everything else. you'll have one volunteer, but 5 people over here telling you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Instead of educating yourself, putting your input in and saying, hey, have you tried this, can you do that? No, all they wanna do is complain that we're doing it wrong. So, I don't care if it's this, if you don't like what we're doing, run for office, okay? You don't like what's going on in your church, get involved. Anything, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, get involved. Cause if you don't, all you do is sit back and complain, all you're doing is bitching. Nobody cares. We hear that every day, okay? Mr. Gloy, he's been in this township for, quite a few years. In my opinion, probably the best supervisor this township's ever produced.
In the county.
You know, he knows his stuff. He's a plethora of knowledge. The man knows what he's doing. I can honestly sit here and say, in I think the 12 years I've been with this board, I have never seen an under the table deal, a backdoor deal, anything that would be like, that's questionable. Do we forget things sometimes? Well, yeah, we're human. We're gonna forget things. We'll forget to post something on the meeting board. We'll forget to put something in the minutes or on our website. It happens. We're human. We're not robots. Okay? This recall, I understand the process. It's there for a reason, okay? It has to be to protect everyone, okay? The accusations that are made, I think, are pretty much, just in my opinion, not worth anybody's time. There's no meat and potatoes to them. It's kind of like slapping something up against the wall, see what sticks. What upsets me most about this recall, it's hindering our business. I do not like being under the microscope, okay? So I'm a little hesitant for any new projects or this and that because, I don't wanna be under the magnifying glass, what are they doing now, okay? The other thing, and the thing that ticks me off more than anything, no disrespect to you, Lance, this man's getting money, taxpayer money, which could go to roads, anything else for this community, over this bogus stuff that's going on. It just ticks me off. And I gotta be careful, I don't wanna get accused of being out of control and, like I was the first time. I'm just upset with it. I'm not gonna back down. I won't let somebody run me off because they think I'm doing a bad job. You don't like the job I'm doing? Run against me. I don't care, more power to you. But as long as I can be a positive force in this community and support everyone else that's doing a good job, I'm gonna do it. Period.
Thank you. Lacey?
Lacey has prepared a statement, and because this is emotional for Lacey, she's asked me to read her statement, so I'm going to do that. I moved to White Pigeon in 2012 when I met my husband, Kent Pletcher. I have helped my husband build our successful transport business that started in 2014. After being a stay-at-home mom for 6 years, when our miracle son started kindergarten in 2019, I decided to go back to work part-time. I wanted my own thing to be passionate about. I was informed of a job opportunity at the Village of White Pigeon and applied that same day. In 2020, I was hired as the village treasurer and bookkeeper. I worked very hard at learning the job on my own with minimal resources or training. I am driven, hardworking, and want to see things done right. Because of that, when the township needed a clerk, I was suggested. I was appointed midterm as clerk in June of 2021. Again, taking over a job that required me to learn a large aspect of new skills. I believe I do my job more than 100% because that's the type of worker I am. I had the budget available to the township board, as I always do well before the due date. I do the same thing at the village, and the council there can speak of that as well. I made copies for each board member on May 18, 2023. 2 for Jean Teff so she could keep one at the front desk. Before our meeting on June 6, 2023, I did not have one request directly to me for the budget. Anita Cassida was handed a copy to look at when she was visiting the office on June 1. I was not here at the time, but there are people who witnessed that encounter between her, Don, and Jean. At our meeting on June sixth, Paige Willis requested to look at the budget, and Don Goy handed her a copy. I'm gonna interject, I was at that meeting and I saw that happen. Continuing on with Lacey's statement. Thus, the accusations regarding the budget not being available are false. I believe that the effort to recall the entire township board and the recall supporters' misuse of FOIA is an absolute waste of time and taxpayer money that could be better spent. We have all been elected, let the votes speak. Everyone here knows their job and the laws very well. The vengeful group that is not, this vengeful group is not doing anything good for the community. The public should be made aware of these costs that come directly from our hard-working residents. I am sorry that this has come to this. I really wish we were gathering today for a productive reason. I would love to continue to serve you all, and I hope that everyone can see that the false allegations on these recall petitions are from a group of counterproductive citizens. If you also want better for the community, do not sign the petitions. Then she has a quote from a book, Dare to Lead, by Bernie Brown. That quote is, and begin quote, "If you are not in the arena getting your ass kicked on occasion, I am not interested in or open to your feedback. There are a million cheap seats in the world today filled with people who will never be brave with their lives, but who will spend every ounce of energy they have hurling advice and judgment at those who dare greatly. Their only contributions are criticism, cynicism, and fear-mongering. If you're criticizing from a place where you're not putting yourself on the line, I am not interested in what you have to say," close quote. Back to Lacey's words. Despite the fact that I like this quote, I do care what others have to say because I'm here as the township clerk to represent the residents of White Pigeon Township. I vote with my mind and heart and lead in the same way. I hope everyone can see who has the best interest for our township and who does not. Thank you, Lacey Pletcher.
Thank you. Jeannie, you have a statement you'd like to make or not?
Yes, I do. I've served the White Pigeon Township for approximately 17 years. I want to back up a little bit and tell you that as of yesterday, it was 17 years that I had been in this building serving this community. Most of those years as the office coordinator. I also serve on the township board as one of the 2 trustees. My duties as office coordinator include assisting anyone who visits or contacts the township hall, and also providing assistance to the township clerk's office, the township treasurer's office, the township supervisor, the township's building inspectors, the township's zoning administrator, the township's ordinance enforcement officer, the fire department, and the cemetery sexton. I have assisted the person behind the recall petition many, many times during her frequent visits and telephone calls to this township. I work very hard to make sure the township provides excellent service to its residents. The accusations made in the recall petition filed against me are false. It is my opinion that the person making these accusations has a personal vendetta against the current township board members due to decisions made by the township board that did not go the way she wanted them to, and therefore it has become her mission to annoy and disrupt township officials who are daily do their best to meet and needs of the township's residents and surrounding communities. Now, this is the other thing I want to say. I came to this community to become the White Pigeon supervisor of the school's transportation service. I drove school bus for 35 years before I finally retired. But moving here was because My husband was retiring, and I was working here in the office. When I had the time, I made the time to also work with the White Pigeon Community Association to set up Pigeon Days and the parade. My biggest worry about what could possibly come out of this recall is the people I care about, the taxpayers, the people who I love as my friends and relatives and neighbors could possibly suffer. And I don't wanna see that happen. So please, please support us, and let's continue to do the wonderful things that we have been doing for you in the past.
Thank you. Trudy, anything you'd like to add?
Pretty much everybody said everything, and Brian, I appreciate what you said about the volunteering and stuff. I said, you know, all through the years, I've done a lot of volunteering. I've been in this community 45 years. I say 44 years I was in banking. I just recently retired. I was asked to be the treasurer. Anytime you're a banker, you're a treasurer. And that's what I've done, and I try to do the best job, and I'm doing it because I want to serve my community. Not so much about the money, I just want to serve my community.
You done?
Yep.
Oh, sure. Not like Mr. Tchaikovsky, he'd still be talking.
I'll take a couple of her minutes. I'm ready to roll.
Okay, I'll just read a brief, maybe it's not quite so brief, but I have a quick statement. Basically, I'm very proud of my 40 years of public service to the White Pigeon Township and the surrounding communities. I have served as supervisor for White Pigeon Township for approximately 34 years. I have and I still have the privilege of serving with many talented and caring individuals who serve as township officers, employees, board members, and volunteers, all of which provide dedicated service to White Pigeon Township, resulting in the township being operated in a conservative and fiscally responsible manner, the creation and maintenance of a comprehensive code of ordinances that govern the township that have been consistently, steadily, and reasonably enforced to protect township residents and their investments in our township. A new township library building and expanded library services, a new township hall and fire station, the establishment of stable funding source to ensure dependable fire protection, first responder, and ambulance services to our township, the establishment of stable funding source to improve the roads within the White Pigeon Township, a top-notch fire and rescue department, and much more. In short, I'm very comfortable in letting the township's accomplishments, my part in those accomplishments, and my reputation stand in contrast to the false accusations contained in the recall petition. I invite the public to compare the record of the current township board members for community service to those few persons that are behind the recall effort. I believe who, in my opinion, has and continues to conduct themselves in a way that distracts from good local government rather than contributes to it, and whose feelings were hurt when township officials recognized her disruptive intent and behavior and took lawful actions to minimize her disruptive behavior. Lastly, the actions of these few individuals are wasting taxpayers' money that would much be better spent on fire rescue equipment for our people. That's all I have. Any other business before the board, Gene?
I would like to address just one comment that was made.
Okay.
Because it's very easy to address it. And that is the FOIA request and the list, requesting the list of duties of the clerk. The township does not have that. We don't have a document within the township that lists the duties of the clerk. The reason we don't have it is it's statutory. It was set by the state legislature. The statute lays it all out. And that's what the person was told. So we can't produce a document we don't have. And FOIA is designed not as a question and answer. You don't submit a FOIA request asking a question. You submit a FOIA request to get a document that exists within the township. The township is not required to create a document that does not exist. It's not required to compile information in any format that's not already compiled. It's just simply to turn over a public document pursuant to that request. And that's a lot of the problem we're having, is FOIA is trying to be used for purposes it was never intended to, and so we respond as best we can to those requests.
Thank you. Anything else? Lacey, anything? Vince, anything?
No, I probably said enough.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Motion with support to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.